Okay, everybody, I just recognised that it started at it's 10 a.m. So we've got about 150 people in this webinar. Um, I am just going to get started. So anybody who joins the webinar from this point onwards is just going to have to miss the beginning of it because I'm not going to let 150 people wait around. So welcome to this webinar. It's the first webinar that we've ever hosted at UK Fire Door Training. It's on the updates to BS 8214 2026, what has changed and what it means for you. So just a quick introduction from me. My name is Jonny Millard. I am the Managing Director here at UK Fire Door Training. I'm not going to give you too much information about myself, but I used to be a secondary school teacher. I later went on to become a fire door inspector, and that's where I found all of my knowledge to do with fire doors. And based on my educational background, I felt that there was a dire need for an improvement in the quality of materials for fire doors. So in 2021, I founded UK Fire Door Training, and since then we've trained over 10,000 people, and we've trained over about I think it's around about over 1,000 businesses now. So yeah, we've gone from strength to strength. Now later this year, we will be launching a new business called Be Competent. It's a new online platform that will help individuals and organizations prove and evidence competence. Again, I'm the managing director of that business as well, and it's a huge shift for us as a business. It's a great new direction for us. It's surely needed, but we are looking for people who can help us with that. We're going to have to do some testing. So what I'd like to know is if anybody would like to be one of those people who help us test it, if you could just drop me an email at johnny@ukfiredoortraining.com, that would be brilliant. So thank you. So 5 things that I want you to learn and know by the end of today. One, that this is a real shift. The entire document has changed quite radically, to be honest with you. Um, It's gone from prescriptive guidance to more of an evidence-led code of practice. Number 2, where responsibility now sits. So there are now clear roles, clear duty holders, and the chain of custody under clause 4. Number 3, supporting evidence. What counts as evidence? What is now insufficient? Number 4, where people will get caught out, and the practical gaps that sit between the reality on site and the standards expectations, and what good looks like. So operating principles for specifiers, installers, manufacturers, and duty holders. So one thing I will say is that there's quite a lot to get through in this document. I'm hoping that we can get through it in less than an hour. I certainly don't want to get through it in half an hour. That will mean that I've simply talked far too fast. But the real shift, and I have got a little caveat on this, but there is a real shift. BS 8214 2026 is not just BS 8214 2016 with a few updates. It's a completely different kind of document. However, my caveat is you'll probably hear me as we go through this webinar sometimes sound like I'm contradicting myself. You'll probably hear me describe this as being both a significant change, and then at other times you might say, oh, it's not that different at all. That is partly intentional. The document itself, BS 8214, has changed radically, particularly in the way that it frames responsibility, evidence, and what is in scope. However, for those who are already working to a high standard, much of it will just feel like a formalization of good practice and stuff that you've already been doing. So if it sounds like a contradiction of points, it's not. It's just the reality of what has changed. So, first real big shift from prescription to evidence. And even the names of the document has changed quite radically. So if you look at the very top of the box on the left of your screen, BS 8214 2016. The name of the document, the long name, was Timber-Based Fire Door Assemblies Code of Practice. You'll see that the new name is now BS 8214 2026 Fire Resisting and Smoke Controlled Doors, Practical Considerations Concerning Specification, Design and Performance in Use Code of Practice. So it's a totally different document. The old one was just timber doors, very prescriptive. The new document is all fire doors and evidenced. So I'm going to go through these bullet points side by side, starting on the left-hand side of the screen. The scope of BS 8214 was quite simply very narrow. It was timber-based fire door assemblies only. The new BS 8214 is all materials, timber, steel, glazed, composite doors. Second bullet point, 2016 excluded door sets, it excluded door kits. It was only covering fire door assemblies, whereas BS 8214 2026 now covers door sets, door kits, door assemblies. They are all in scope. We've got a great widening of what is in scope. Bullet point number 3, prescriptive ceiling details and construction recommendations. This is now less prescriptive and it points the user to more supportive evidence. Number 4, linear gap ceiling requirements have changed. Unfortunately, and I will show you this in a short while, but I can't actually show you because it would be copyright infringement. But the linear gap ceiling requirements have changed. So for fire door installers who are doing this day in, day out, you are going to have to buy the new standard and really get to grips with the new linear gap ceiling requirements. And number 5, in 2016, the roles were implicit, responsibility was driven by convention, whereas now in 2026, the roles are more clearly defined. We've got specifiers, providers, installers, duty holders. If I could sum this up in a sentence, the standard has stopped telling you how to build a door, and it's now moved to more of well, now you need to tell us how to prove and evidence what you have built. So, one standard now for all fire doors. 2026 edition treats a fire door as a coordinated and complete system, no matter how it's applied, whether it's a door set, whether it's a door kit, or whether it's an assembly. So, timber-based fire doors probably makes up 80-90% of the UK fire door market. Steel fire doors, these are typically supplied as complete door sets. Glazed, metal, and composite. And I'm just going to stress this point again. Previously, 2016 only covered timber-based fire door assembly. So we've got this great widening of what is in BS 8214. It's all types of door, all materials, steel, glazed, composite, etc. And then it's the formats are now all in scope. Door sets, door kits, and door assembly. And I'll just briefly go through the difference of what this means. So for those of you who don't know, a door set is from a single manufacturer and it is supplied as one coordinated complete unit controlled entity. A door kit, again, it's from a single manufacturer, 2 or more separate components to be assembled on site. And a door assembly, it can be components from multiple manufacturers, multiple suppliers. So you might buy your closers from an ironmonger, you might buy your door set from you might just go to Howden's. You've got to use the manufacturer's instructions, you've got to use the certification and the correct evidence to put that door together yourself on site, and that's a door assembly. Previously, it was only door assemblies that were included on BS 8214 2016. Now everything on this screen is included in BS 8214 2026. One of the big changes, and I'm really frustrated because I can't show you these changes because it would be just copyright infringement. So if there is one thing that all fire door installers do and fire door inspectors do is buy the new standard from the BSI group. Linear gap sealing requirements have changed in Table 3, Table 4, Table 5, and Table 6. So Table 3 is the one that I always used to show in our courses that we deliver. Table 3 covers supporting construction unlikely to distort during fire exposure, for example, a masonry wall, timber stud partition, etc. What is allowed for linear gap sealing requirements has now changed. There are certain things that used to be allowed that are no longer allowed. You need to make sure that you buy the new standard and you're adhering to the new standard for all new inspections going forward. I do want to make this point because sometimes people ask this question. People will ask, well, does that mean that all doors in the past have got to change? No, it doesn't. It just means that doors from now going forward need to adhere to the new standard. It's not like all doors from the past need to be ripped out and changed to the new linear standard, the new linear gap sealing requirements. It's just that new doors going forward need to be installed with the linear gap sealing requirements as they are now. So where responsibility now sits, we've got roles, we've got duty holders, and there's a chain of responsibility under the 2026 edition that simply didn't exist before. And I'm just going to touch on the legal backdrop for this. Building Safety Act 2022 and the Fire Safety Act 2021. And now we've got the Building Safety Regulator, higher risk buildings, and there's procedures around that, procedures regulations 2023, and the CDM regulations 2015. So now the standard is explicit about what these responsibilities and these roles are. Standard has now put names on these doors. Now there are 7 operational roles and one overarching requirement. I'll just go through each of these with you. Number 1, specifiers. This defines performance, components, and dimensional characteristics. Often a designer, an architect, or a consultant, and they owe their duties under the CDM regulations 2015. Then we have a door provider. They supply the manufactured door set, all the assembly and components to site. They may not, or they may be the manufacturer of the door. Then we have the manufacturer themselves. They should confirm that the supporting evidence is available and accepted for the specification. The manufacturer's specification is, as it always has been, the main reference throughout the chain of custody, throughout the chain of evidence. The supply chain, distributors, merchants, processors, they must respect and observe and maintain the specification as required. Door installers, and I haven't got data on exactly who is in this webinar. I have had a quick glance and I can see that probably 50-60% of the people who are in this webinar this morning, purely because you will have been our customers, are people who install fire doors regularly. So this is really aimed at you. Fire door installers now have to act in accordance with the received specification. You cannot alter the specification, and you must provide handover information to the relevant duty holder. And now we'll move on to the relevant duty holder. They resolve issues outside the supplier's responsibilities, such as things like opening dimensions, structural compatibility, etc. The walling and the partition contractor, they must ensure that the supporting construction and the opening are compatible with the specified fire door and supporting evidence is relied upon. And the overarching requirement is that everybody in this chain must keep to the manufacturer's specification. And departing from this may introduce design responsibility under the CDM regulations 2015. In other words, don't make changes to a fire door that is outside of what's allowed on the manufacturer's instructions, outside of the certification. It must be justified and it must have supporting evidence. So there are 3 traps in the new framework. Number 1, substitution trap. Anybody who makes a component in the manufacturer's specification is making a design change and therefore becomes a designer under the CDM regulations 2015. That includes a contractor, say, swapping a hinge or swapping out, say, putting on a new handle onto a door, changing the location of a material on a door, putting on components in positions that may be a new position on the door. This makes you a designer under the CDM regulations 2015. Number 2, scope of evidence trap. If you supply, specify, or alter the door outside of its original supported scope, again, you are assuming responsibility under the CDM regulations. You must be able to justify and evidence the changes that you have made to that door. And number 3, the installer as a designer trap. If an installer modifies a door outside of the parameters of the supporting evidence, this includes on-site fixes, such as, say, a poorly prepared opening, again, you are making design considerations. All of this is under the CDM regulations 2015. So I want to make this very clear. It doesn't make these things illegal, it just makes them attributable. So, supporting evidence. What now counts as evidence and what doesn't, and why one good document is rarely enough. So we have got 7 forms of supporting evidence. Number 1, fire test reports. These come from a UCAS accredited lab, such as, say, Warrington Fire as an example. This is the foundation, but only describes the exact tested design. Number 2, technical and field of application assessments. So this can be expert opinion on test evidence, defining the scope of approval for design or range. Number 3, field of application reports. So this summarizes applicable evidence with leaf sizes, components, handling, and installation parameters. Number 4, EN classification and EXAP reports. So BSEN 13501-2 classifications, extended application reports under BSEN 15269 series. Number 5, third-party certification scope. So we've got these accredited schemes. Some of you will be a member of them. BM-Trada, Firus, Blue Sky, they all form under BSEN ISO 16065, which is like product for products. You can't these are not interchangeable. You can't say, well, I've done this bit under Blue Sky and I've done this bit under BM-Trada. If you are installing a door and you're a member of BM-Trada and you're going through the BM-Trada process, it's just that door is going through the BM-Trada process. Number 6, you have your CE and your UKCA technical documents. These may form part of supporting evidence for some products and components. At publication, internal pedestrian fire doors themselves cannot be CE or UKCA or UKNI for Northern Ireland, marked under a harmonised and designated EN product standard. Number 7, code of practice and manufacturer data. This supports the overall case, but it doesn't replace product-specific fire performance evidence for the complete door. What I want to get really clear is that these support one another. Um, this really is the death of cobbling it together from different spec sheets approach. That ultimately, as they always have been, and this is where I was on about best practice earlier. Best practice in this industry is, or has always been, that components need to be compatible. Sorry, I'll rephrase that. Components need to be compatible with one another. If they don't explain how they work together, if you haven't got evidence of how they've been tested together, if they work together, then you can't combine them. You can't install a door with those components together. If you are going to introduce new components, then you need to have evidence as to why they have been included. For those of you who have already been doing this correctly, it will just feel like vindication for stuff that you've already been doing for a substantial period of time. For those of you who haven't been doing that, you now need to. So the 4 illusions of compliance. BS 8214 2026 is explicit. Doors can be supplied with the illusion of compliance and believed to perform as stated, but not actually be fit for use. So I'll go through each of these boxes. You can't just say, well, I've got the test report and it describes exactly what the design tested. It cannot be assumed to apply to any other configuration without a technical evaluation. Number 2, mixed certification. A certificate from, say, Scheme A cannot be combined with Scheme B unless the providers have explicitly stated the conditions and the limitations. Number 3, manufacturers' data sheets alone. This is useful for component performance, but not equivalent to test evidence. The underlying evidence must be independently verified. And number 4, it complies with BS 8214. You can't just say, well, it's to BS 8214. That's not enough. The standard requires you to demonstrate how and why it complies, where your evidence lies. Cross-referenced with supporting evidence. Practical worked example of this is if a contractor receives a door labelled as FD30 or FD30S, they have the door manufacturer's certificate, and then they have the certificate for, say, a lock or a handle, and then the certificate for the closer and a certificate for the intumescent seals. None of these documents, if these don't reference one another, then they can't form part of supporting evidence. They all have to be compatible with one another. So where will people get caught out? What are the practical gaps between site reality and what the standard now expects? Let's just use an example. Let's take the opening. I'm not saying that people are doing this, but it's the kind of thing that might have been going on site, certainly pre-Grenfell. An installer arrives on site. The opening may be out of square, it may be oversized, it may be undersized, and then the installer makes it work. Additional packing, additional mastic, make adjustments, and then the job is just ticked off. The risk with this is that there is no record of the deviation. The installer themselves has now absorbed liability, and the door is no longer covered by any supporting evidence. 2026, BS 8214 2026 has got a new expectation. If the opening is not to specification, the installer should suspend what they're doing and inform the relevant duty holder. And any on-site modification needs to have supporting evidence that permits it. And the installer's competence needs to be documented rather. This is the single biggest behavioural change for installers. So the 2026 standard does not allow you to make on-the-fly fixes for badly prepared openings. The chain of escalation is now much clearer. If the opening is wrong, you need to suspend your work, you need to notify the duty holder, let the duty holder handle it and resolve it. The walling contractor carries the opening responsibility for installers in the room. This protects you. The current convention has always been, well, we'll make it work, we'll move on. But this leaves you as an installer carrying the liability. You're then paying the price, and then you're going to have to provide evidence and defend it. For an installer, this is very different because it's so explicit now in BS 8214 2026. For project managers in this webinar, you really need to consider the budget element of this. Okay, there must be scope within the project to budget for this. Some openings will need to be reworked before the door goes in, and that's a program issue that you need to plan for, not a surprise when people arrive on site. So hardware substitution and post-installation modification in clause 10.8. And it makes very clear that all of the following count as modifications under the new standard. And this really should hit quite hard with facilities managers and anybody doing any maintenance on fire doors. So all of the following counts as modifications on the new standard. Surface fixing additional items to the door, replacing one component with another, cutting or drilling in to the door post-installation, and retrofitting things like digital locks, magnetic locks, viewers, letter plates, air transfer grills. If these changes are not detailed in the original supporting evidence, then it must be submitted to a suitable test or assessing body before the modification is made to determine whether the supporting evidence can be revised or whether new test evidence is required. The post-occupation reality of fire doors is where things get interesting. We've got things like nowadays, what we find retrofitted to doors is things like magnetic locks, these digi locks, kick plates, retrofit closers, etc. The 2026 standards position is that none of this happens informally. None of this is, well, no, that door needs a kick plate because it's getting damaged. The line is that this often surprises people, okay? The standard says the proposed change should be submitted to a test or assessing body before the modification is made, not after. What I want you guys to do is build a modification log for every fire door under your control. Document every change against the original supporting evidence. If you can't, your fire risk assessment is going to start, or your fire risk assessor is going to start finding fault. Ultimately, good fire door maintenance operatives and good facilities managers, good housing associations will have been keeping maintenance logs of individual fire doors already. That is now a must. You must do that going forward. There are some changes to marking and traceability. Colour rings are now not certification evidence. So I'm just going to start with what is now obsolete. The concentric colour rings. They're quite dated now, I'll be honest with you. And I want to caveat this. I've got two caveats actually to this. Number one, I'm not referring to BM Trada plugs with the tree, or some people refer to it as an arrow. I'm specifically referring to the concentric colour rings. So you might have found doors with it looks a bit like a bullseye, like a yellow, and then there might be a red spot in the middle. The colour code system that's in Table 1 of BS 8214 2016 is no longer relied on. You will still encounter it when you're inspecting old doors that may have been installed in, say, the 90s or the early 2000s, but they should not be treated as evidence of certification. And this is where my caveat comes in. The colour code system from BS 8214/2016, that applies to timber-based fire doors only. It's no longer to be relied on. It will still be encountered when you inspect existing fire doors, but it should not be treated as evidence of certification. What is now required, and people will have been doing this for a substantial period of time, is your markings must now allow the supporting evidence to be traced and referenced, including the FD rating classification, such as FD30 or FD60, and the responsible organisation. Markings must be clear, durable, and remain in place throughout a door's working life. And I'm fairly sure that all of you who are in this webinar will have encountered the certifier labels that are on top of doors. They'll have found them being painted over. They'll have found that they've been defaced. It's very clear now in BS 8214/2026 that they must remain durable and they must remain in place throughout the full working life of a fire door. Now, one thing that's been entering the market for the last few years is digital traceability. We've got these little plugs that go in the side of the door, or QR codes or RFID tags, and then they are linked to a digital database. I know that a lot of organizations are using these, and they talk about this being relevant to the golden thread. And when they work pretty well, actually. It can be quite a good system for managing your stock of fire doors, particularly for housing associations or universities who are looking after thousands of doors. This is only encouraged. It's not explicitly said in BS 8214 that this is the future and this is what everybody needs to move over to. It's just encouraged, which is, I suppose, encouraging for businesses who are in this field, but ultimately it's not compulsory. It's not compulsory that these digital tags have to be on doors. Really, what the standard really is asking for is traceable identification. That's the ultimate requirement here. Okay, so moving on to maintenance, and we've got notional versus nominal distinction, and these are words that get thrown around a lot with fire doors. You might hear the terms notional fire door and nominal fire door. You might hear them mentioned regularly. A notional door is a formal term used and defined by the Home Office in Home Office guidance for purpose-built blocks of flats. A notional fire door is an existing door that at the time of its installation met the requirements for a fire door, but might not meet today's standards. As I said, it's a formal term, it's defined by the Home Office guidance, it's only used within a fire risk assessment. A nominal door, on the other hand, is more of an industry term for a door that does not have documented test evidence and it does not meet the notional definition. And I think this is the crucial part for me. I know that more people are starting to understand this now, but people use notional and nominal interchangeably. They talk about them like they're the same thing. They are different, and it's very important that you are aware of this. Back to nominal doors, they can only be considered to be to provide fire resistance after a competent risk assessment, which has been carried out by a competent fire door inspector. So a competent fire door inspector will look at a door that may not have certification because things like the label may have been removed or defaced or damaged or whatever. This is the kind of thing where a competent fire door inspector is able to look at that door and then say, well, it's 44 millimeters thick, it's got intumescent seals, they're compatible, it's got the same width and height as the other doors that are on the corridor, and I know that they have certification. When I tap the door, it feels solid. It closes against the rebate stop. It's made of whatever material it might be made of, let's say timber. When I tap it, it feels very solid. My professional judgment, my assumption is that this is a fire door and it will last for a period of time, let's say 30 minutes. So what the new standard requires of maintenance, we have inspection frequency. This is determined by fire risk assessment. It's not a fixed interval. Replacements, we have like for like with reference to the original specification and supporting evidence. Documentation, when you're carrying out maintenance activity, it should be recorded. Any modifications must be aligned with the original specification and supporting evidence. And those two bullet points, documentation and replacements, I suppose they go hand in hand with one another. If a closer has been damaged and it's got to be replaced because it can't be repaired, then replace on a like for like basis. If you are going to introduce a new closer, then document it and evidence it. Well, it should all be documented and evidenced, but you need to be able to justify the choice if it's a new closer. And then competence. Competence is now explicitly mentioned in BS 8214 2026. It wasn't mentioned in the 2016 version. But inspection of fire doors and maintenance of fire doors needs to be undertaken by a competent person, which is defined in clause 3.4. On this point about the frequency of inspections, some people are already doing this. It's on a risk assessment basis. In a busy building where there's high traffic, in a hospital where there's trolleys going through, doors might need to be inspected weekly or monthly. In low traffic areas, where there might be a cupboard and it's only locked and opened once a month, once every couple of months, those doors might only need to be checked annually. And maintenance activity should be recorded. And I'll just reiterate the point that I've been making. Any modifications or replacements should remain aligned with the original specification, original manufacturer information with supporting evidence. So moving on to our final section, what good looks like and operating principles for people on the receiving end of the new standard. So that everybody takes something from this webinar, and I'm not sure if you can see the number of people, but we've got about 239 people in this webinar at the moment. So I do hope that all 239 of you actually get something from this webinar. And I'll try and give at least one thing for each of you here. So for specifiers, treat every fire door spec as a tailor-made document. Reference the supporting evidence by name. Document every component decision against it. Avoid carrying forward a previous project's spec without a re-evaluation. For providers, for manufacturers, provide a complete handover package, not just the certificate. So include a description of the fixings and packings and sealants that have been used, the operating and the maintenance instructions, any safety information. Okay. For installers, probably 50–60% of the people in here need to refuse to absorb the duty holder's risk. If the opening is wrong, you must suspend work. You must notify in writing, not a telephone call. It must be via an email. If you make a modification, document it against supporting evidence and keep it. Probably both a paper-based version and a digital version. For duty holders, build a fire door asset register with traceable evidence. Link every door to its supporting evidence, the test certificates, the certification, including components. Again, I'm back to that point that I made early on in the webinar. Parts of BS 8214 2026 feel radically different, but a lot of you will feel, well, I was already doing that. So there will be a lot of you who are already going, well, I already have a fire door asset register. The point is now that it's now explicitly mentioned and prescribed, or at least encouraged in BS 8214 2026. Make your maintenance records auditable and treat undocumented doors as nominal until proven otherwise. For competent persons, fire door maintenance operatives, fire door inspectors, fire risk assessors, big shift is that competence is now defined in the standard and across the industry as a whole with BS 8670-1 and the Building Safety Act that now requires competence across the built environment. But in BS 8214 2026, clause 3.4, appropriately trained, qualified, instructed, you need to document your basis of competence, including any memberships of third-party schemes where applicable. And this is a good opportunity for me to bring up our new project, Be Competent Again, that we will be releasing this summer. I can't give an exact date, but I'm hoping June, July time we'll be releasing our new platform, Be Competent, that will allow people or help people evidence competence. And this is something that I've been spending a tremendous amount of time on in the last few weeks and months, is what competence actually is. Competence is not a checklist. It's not well, I've done this course, I've done this qualification, and here's a certificate. I've been on this course and I've got this certificate, therefore I'm a competent person. And UK Fire Door Training actually did a survey and a white paper that we released in January of this year. And we found that, I haven't got the exact data to hand, but around about 70-80% of respondents are under the belief that because they've been on a fire door course, that's evidence of their competence. And I just want to be hyper clear with what I'm saying here. It forms part of your proof of competence, but the certificate alone does not prove that you are competent. Competence is a combination of skills, knowledge, experience, and behaviors. It's an ongoing thing. It's something that needs to be topped up. It requires ongoing CPD. It requires you to consistently be performing as a competent person. And something that I've really tried to get across in our new platform, and it is quite in depth, is this element of competence is fluid. It's something that it's not binary. It's not something that you either have or don't have. And I have it because I've now done all of these courses and qualifications. Skills, knowledge, experience, and behaviors. If any of those lapse, then you are no longer a competent person. I'll try and give you an example. If you may possess the skills, you may possess the knowledge, you may have 30 years experience, but if you go on site and you're deliberately operating in a way that you know is unethical, you know that, oh, I know I've used the wrong type of phone, but nobody will find out, then you can't say you're a competent person because your behaviors have lapsed. If you're not doing CPD, continually refreshing and updating your knowledge and keeping abreast of updates to regulations and laws and testing all sorts of things. If your knowledge lapses, then you are no longer a competent person. And that's the whole point of our new platform, Be Competent, is to help people prove, evidence, and maintain their competence. So, if in doubt, and this is for everybody, if in doubt, I want you to ask where the supporting evidence is, and then keep these documents and explain how they work together. This is the default question that everybody should be asking in this webinar is, where's the supporting evidence? That's the crucial thing where everybody needs to work together. Where's the supporting evidence for this door? And that's the one thing that, if there's one question or one thing that you take from this webinar, it's where is the supporting evidence to back up the decisions that are being made around the fire doors that are under your control, under the fire doors that you're maintaining, inspecting, under the fire doors that you're installing? Where is the supporting evidence? So a quick summary. Number one, BS 8214, it covers all fire doors, all materials and all supply formats. Number two, standard is now evidence-led. It's not as prescriptive as BS 8214 2016. It's much more evidence-led. Number three, roles never used to exist in 2016. They are now formalised in 2026. Number four, a test report on its own is not enough. It's rarely going to be sufficient for supporting evidence. You need to have your certification and all sorts of evidence to back that up. Number five, installers, maintainers, inspectors, well, everybody, I suppose. The linear gap ceiling requirements have changed, and I need you to go off and buy the standard. You need to go and buy the standard and have a look and get the two side by side and look at the changes that have the changes to the linear gap ceiling requirements in tables 3, 4, 5, and 6. Again, if you weren't here when I went through this earlier in the webinar, I would have shown you, but that would be copyright infringement. So I'm encouraging you to go and buy the standard. Number 6, marking must be traceable. Certification, things like labels and plugs, they must remain on a door throughout its entire life. The old colour rings, not the Bientrada plugs, the colour rings, the ones that look like a bullseye, they are now obsolete, but you still might find them as an inspector if you're inspecting doors from many years ago. And sorry, I'm not sure if I've made this clear enough as I've gone through this. It's a common misconception. If you're inspecting a door and it was, say, installed in 2020, then you're still working to BS 8214 2016. You're not working to BS 8214 2026. Really, one thing one negative that can come from BS 8214 2026 is if people who lack knowledge, and that comes back down to that point of competence, if they lack the knowledge, then they're not a competent person. So housing associations and facilities managers, it's important that you're checking the competence of the people who are actually coming and inspecting and installing and maintaining your doors. If somebody turns up and you know that the doors were installed in, I'll use 2021, there probably wasn't many installed during COVID. If these doors were installed in 2021 and the fire door inspector comes in and starts referencing BS 8214 2026, then you need to be questioning the competence of the fire door inspector, not the fire door installer who did them in 2021. Point number 7, maintenance frequency is risk driven and it must be recorded. And number 8, if the opening is wrong, then the installer needs to contact the duty holder. The work needs to be suspended. You can't start improvising on the job because then you're taking responsibility under CDM regulations. So the obligatory little plug that I've got to do, to be honest with you, because after all, we are UK fire door training. Many of you have probably done one of our courses, but for those of you who haven't, whatever your role is under BS 8214 2026, whether you're a specifier, an installer, inspector, manufacturer, we do have courses. We've got a suite of online self-paced e-learning courses. They're all recognised as being CPD. They're all recognised by CPD. They're all FireQual recognised programs. They cover things like inspection and maintenance, installation, etc. You can start at any time. You can study at your own pace, and we give lifetime access to these materials, and the certificate lasts for 3 years. And I am going to be explicit with this because I mentioned it earlier. You do one of these courses, that doesn't prove that you're a competent person. It just proves that you've done that course. It forms part of your proof of competence. We have practical courses, and this is a model that we're increasingly moving towards, is our hands-on training. And we will be opening new centres this year, one up north and one down south. So we should have 3 training centres, certainly in the next 12 months. We now deliver in-person practical training courses. We can also come to you. We've got a mobile rig that we can install. It doesn't mean as many people get to have that hands-on work, but we can come to you if you are fairly remote. But hands-on training is fantastic for working on your skills and your knowledge. And these are, I mean, I am the managing director of the business, but in my opinion, they are the best practical courses in the country by a country mile. And we will be filming and evidencing and showing the kind of things that go on in our practical training in the coming weeks and months, because the quality of these courses, I mean, we've got a 2-day installation course, 2-day maintenance course, 2-day inspection course, but the one that people find is they get a lot of value from is our 3-day combined course that covers all 3 elements, and it's very, very hands-on. About 2 solid days of hands-on work where you get to install a door, maintain a door, and inspect a door, as well as cover all of the theory as well. Something that UK Fire Door Training has moved over to in the last few weeks and months is recognised regulated qualifications. So we now deliver FireQual recognised regulated qualifications, as well as NOCN. I should have mentioned ABBE. We've got the ABBE Level 3 Fire Door Inspection Award as well. And these are lifetime qualifications that sit with you for life. And an exciting piece of news that I'm giving to all of you in this webinar is that next week, on Monday, we'll be sending an email. We are launching fire risk assessment qualifications. Level 3, foundation, level 4, intermediate, level 5, advanced. And they are all mapped to the new BS 8674. So massive change for us at UK Fire Door Training. This is a new suite of qualifications that we're launching. We've spent a tremendous amount of money on developing these qualifications or developing the content for these qualifications rather. They will be industry leading. We want to provide a first class customer and learning experience, and this will all be done through our new platform in the future as well, Be Competent. So we're very excited for this. This is a new direction for us. We do fire stopping training as well, but this is a substantial move away from just passive fire protection, fire doors, fire stopping training. We're now moving more to fire risk assessment qualifications as well, and we want to bring that first class learning experience to all of you. And I will point out that we're so confident in the quality of these materials and the quality of the delivery. I mean, that's one thing we've always prided ourselves on at UK Fire Door Training, and it's why we've got a 4.9 rating on Trustpilot. So keep your eyes peeled on Monday for the information on the fire risk assessment qualifications. So, interpreted simply, the standard has now stopped telling you how to build a door, less prescriptive. It's now about evidencing it, improving what you have built. That is the end of the webinar. And I'm noting that it's 10:54. I've got, it just says 99 plus. So I did open the Q&A, but you are going to have to forgive me. I have never used Zoom webinars before, but I will open the Q&A. But no, unfortunately, that's not opening. What I'm going to do, I was going to make this point at the beginning. What I am going to do is, I've given you my email address earlier. I'll just go back to it in the presentation. I'll just put my email address back on the screen. If anybody has got any questions from today, please email me at johnny@ukfiredoortraining.com. Any questions, please put them there, and I may do a little bit of either a follow-up video or may do a little bit of a blog where common questions are actually answered in a blog, and we'll put that on our website. We'll send that out again via email. And the only other point that I wanted to raise is that you are going to get a 1 hour CPD certificate from this session today. Please be patient. We haven't got the mechanism to create them automatically. I may figure it out, but right now I think we may have to do it manually. So given the fact that there's been about 240 people in this, I'm just asking for a little bit of patience. But rest assured, if you are in this webinar, you will receive your 1 hour certificate. And there's a big thank you from me. Thank you for your patience. And I do hope that everybody has gained something from today. And I'm going to end the webinar. So thank you very much and have a good day.